Jake Tapper likes to think he's America's newsman. He probably looks in the mirror and tells himself that. The Lead with Jake Tapper. You're going to provide America some beautiful soliloquies tonight, Jake. Anyway, before Joe Biden's goodbye bonanza, Jake Tapper had this to say.
Just about 8 minutes from now, President Biden is set to speak from the Oval Office. This will be his farewell address to the nation after 4 years in office, which began on the single deadliest day of the COVID pandemic and just 14 days after the worst attack on American democracy since the Civil War.
You see, that's why you're not a newsman at all, Jake. Nobody outside of TDS sufferers believes this. It's laughably ridiculous. Now let's go back to 2020 on the night Biden was declared the winner on CNN.
It's been a time of several significant and utterly avoidable failures, most tragically, of course, the unwillingness to respect facts and science and do everything that can be done to save lives during a pandemic. It has been a time where truth and fact were treated with disdain. It is a time of cruelty where official inhumanity, such as child separation, became the official shameful policy of the United States.
Let me tell you something. Jake knows that the kids in cages thing that they all lost their minds about started under Obama. He knows it, but he doesn't care.
But now the Trump presidency is coming to an end. To an end. With so many squandered opportunities and ruined potential, but also an era of just plain meanness. It must be said, to paraphrase President Ford, for tens of millions of our fellow Americans, their long national nightmare is over.
Well, guess what, Jake? The nightmare is back. Let's take a look at Jim Acosta. You remember him? I bet deep down he's excited to try to get the spotlight back now that the Orange Man is returning.
I want to take a moment to talk about something President Biden said during his farewell address. He warned the free press is crumbling in this country. I would add that's only if we, the people, let that happen. Journalists exist to seek the truth, to tell people's stories, to lift up voices that may not be heard otherwise, to shine a light on injustice, and to hold the powerful accountable. We are not the enemy of the people. We are the defenders of the people. Walter Cronkite once said, freedom of the press is not just important to democracy, it is democracy. I want to take a moment to show you something. A woman sent me this sign 8 years ago. She carried it here at a march in Washington. She wrote on the back of the sign, to me and the press here in D.C., you have our support. To Nora, wherever you are, right back at you. Reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta.
Goodness gracious, the self-importance of these people.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big
the rest
fan
of
of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of the...
Okay, just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.